Throughout the years, I always find myself coming back to one specific place. A place of fog, of abandoned lost towns, of dead empty worlds. Almost a year ago, we covered a multitude of games that encapsulated this feeling perfectly. We traveled through the vast, frozen wastes of the Arctic, pursued by the unknown. We explored brutalist cities of concrete left abandoned long ago, consumed by rust and madness. We ventured into infinite labyrinth in pursuit of ancient visions, and we sank to the bottoms of alien oceans and uncovered cosmic horrors. Beyond that, we stepped outside of the virtual world and descended further into the endless layers of a forgotten megastructure, overtaken by the ever-expanding growth of technology long after humanity has faded. Whether it's art, photography, film, or video games, isolation, anxiety, dread, disconnect, and melancholy are emotions that rule these worlds. The peaceful silence that pervades these places is the faint reminder that you're the only one left alive in a vast empty world. Once again, we find ourselves here, on the precipice of a brand new journey. A journey into dying worlds. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had that feeling like someone might be watching you? Well, that's because they are. Thankfully though, we got a fix for you. It's called Surfshark VPN, and it encrypts all your data and online activities, protecting you from any unwanted watchful eyes. Intruders trying to invade your personal space, hackers, ISPs, targeted ads, and malicious malware looking to infiltrate and damage your machine. And if you're often connected to public Wi-Fi, you're a prime target for cyber attacks. Surfshark ensures that even on unsecured networks, your private information stays protected. But it's not just about your safety and privacy, it's about your freedom too. Surfshark lets you bypass geo-restrictions and access global content, while avoiding price discrimination when shopping or booking flights. And with unlimited devices under one account, you're protected anywhere and everywhere. With 3,200 plus servers in across 100 countries, there is nothing limiting your potential. Want to give it a try? Click the link in the description for an extra 4 months free, backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you Surfshark VPN for keeping us safe. In Rainworld, nature and decay have long taken over most of the planet. The world, once home to an advanced civilization, is completely enveloped in massive structures and machinery that span the entirety of the visible surface. Layers of metal and concrete are stacked on top of each other, creating a labyrinth of tunnels, corridors, and towering ruins that seem to go on forever. Yet, whoever built and terraformed this planet is nowhere to be found. They have long abandoned this world, perhaps in search for a better home. Maybe they simply went extinct. Whatever the reason is, their absence has left the world slowly erode, to become a husk of its former self, swallowed by the relentless march of time. With all this long left abandoned, nature has reclaimed what's rightfully hers. Vegetation grows and covers the ruins of rust. Vines wrap around broken machinery, and moss blankets the crumbling walls of ancient structures. Trees sprout once again from the cracks in the metal floors, their roots weaving through the remnants of pipes and wiring. Pools of water collect in forgotten chambers, nourishing the plant life that has long taken hold. Even the air feels alive, filled with the sounds of rustling leaves and critters, as if the planet itself is breathing once again. Nature has not just survived here, it has flourished, transformed the ruins of the old world into something new. But even though this world might seem empty and abandoned, don't let it fool you, because it is brimming with life. Wildlife, just like the flora, has overtaken the land. Small animals scurry through cracks and tunnels of the old structures, making homes in the broken remains of the old world. Predators stalk their prey, blending into the rusted environments as they see fit. Bioluminescent creatures evolve to survive the deepest and darkest pits of the megastructure. In the water-filled spaces, aquatic life forms swim, rippling the still pools that have formed over centuries. The wildlife here is as strange and diverse as the world itself. Unique species have emerged, adapted to the ruins they call home. Some are built for stealth, moving silently through, while others thrive in wide open spaces. And some curiously display behaviors that seem almost calculated, implying a level of intelligence beyond instinct. Each species in this world plays a unique role in the ecosystem, forming a distinct point in the food chain. Life here has adapted and thrived in the wake of abandonment, turning what was left behind into a thriving, interconnected ecology. You are a part of this ecosystem. You play as a young and lost slug cat, a vulnerable yet nimble little creature, navigating the both enormous world it finds itself in and the uncaring ecosystem within it, driven by the simple goal of reconnecting with your lost family. The slug cat, fragile, unarmed, and perpetually outmatched in a world teeming with predators far larger and stronger. Yet, it survives. The slug cat is an agile and resourceful little creature, and the player must use this to outmaneuver and outsmart the many different life forms that exist within this shared environment. The creatures of this world don't see you as special, just another part of their habitat, a potential meal, or an intruder to be avoided. As you move through this world, you'll notice that this ecosystem persists with or without you being there. Predators hunt for their food and engage in combat. Leeches lurk in the water, waiting for their next victim. Batflies flutter in dense swarms, feeding on the abundant plant life provided for them. Scavengers traveling in groups, communicating with gestures and sounds, while larger herbivore creatures graze calmly, indifferent to the chaos around them. Our days are spent just like everyone else. We wake up, find food, avoid predators, and try to make progress exploring this world to find our lost family. We are but a slug cat, stuck in our own sensuous immediacy of the animal kingdom we find ourselves in. But while we've been at this, something has been brewing. Slowly the sky gets darker. A deep, rumbling, thundering sound is growing, and all the creatures, no matter the size or aggression, seize what they're doing and scurry away to shelter. This could only mean one thing: rain is coming. In Rain World, the rain is the equalizer of all. It's a catastrophic event that floods the environment and kills almost anything caught in the open. It's a cycle that happens regularly, marking the passage of time in the game. This rain is incredibly intense, quickly filling tunnels, chambers, and open spaces with water, leaving no escape for any creature caught unprepared. You find safety in designated hibernation chambers, small enclosed areas which the waters can't get to, protecting you from the flood. If you fail to reach one in time, the rain will drown you, ending your progress. This mechanic creates constant tension, the game's natural countdown. You need to carefully plan your movements, knowing that you can't linger in any one area for too long. This rain isn't just a background feature, it's a core part of the gameplay. Rain World is a fascinating game because it immerses you in a richly detailed world, brimming with backstory and lore, yet it offers no direct exposition. Rather than guiding you with explicit objectives or dialogue, Rain World drops you into its vast interconnected world and leaves you to fend for yourself. You're free to explore, survive, and discover at your own pace. You're just a little animal caught in something far beyond its understanding. Stopping at any moment to take in the environment around us and the backdrop behind us, we can start putting together a story. Throughout our journeys, we find ourselves in a multitude of different regions and environments. We start off in the outskirts, a decaying, overgrown industrial suburb filled with rusted pipes, broken scaffolding, and massive grinders. The atmosphere feels vast and desolate, a perfect introduction to the game's hauntingly beautiful world. This area connects directly to 4 distinct and different districts. The first is by going northeast, where we find the main industrial complex, a sprawling mechanical labyrinth of rusting machinery and abandoned factories. This area is filled with towering smokestacks, intricate pipes, and massive gears. This region uses verticality to showcase its scale. The interconnected platforms create a sense of disorientation. It also introduces several new predators, notably vultures, massive flying creatures that stalk the open spaces. Going south of the industrial complex, we find the garbage wastes. This polluted region was undoubtedly a dumping ground for the advanced civilization that once thrived on this planet, a landfill of scrap and machinery. This area is characterized by vast expanses of trash, sludge-filled rooms, and unstable heaps of rusting machinery and debris. Leech-infested waters dominate much of this region. If we had gone west from outskirts, we can find an expansive outdoor region with large overhanging machinery, evenly spaced trenches, and tall fungal growths. This area harbors various distinct new creatures. Adding to the eerie beauty of this region are the reindeer, massive, gentle creatures that roam the landscape, seemingly unbothered by the dangers around them. They act as both imposing backdrops and a potential lifeline, as their enormous size allows them to traverse dangerous environments safely, offering players a rare moment of reprieve if they manage to hitch a ride. There are plenty more regions in Rain World. On our journey heading northeast, we come across an ocean, a sprawling, partially submerged region. Vast open waters dominate the landscape. In the background, a multitude of structures and monolithic machinery lays in ruin, shrouded in thick fog. Venturing further, we come across the shaded citadel, an eerie and lightless region steeped in darkness. Once a critical hub for the old civilization, its exact purpose remains unclear, though its intricate architecture suggests it might have served as a religious or cultural site. Packs of aggressive, half-machine, half-biological predatory birds roam the landscape. They are faster than you, have excellent eyesight in the dark, and are best avoided at all costs. Coming off of the darkness of the shaded citadel, we reach the wall, an immense vertical structure which loomed over the citadel and shades it from the sunlight. We embark on a long journey to climb the tall tower, navigating narrow ledges and crumbling pathways. The climb is a grueling test of endurance and skill as we ascend higher and higher into the unknown. For the first time in the entire game, we are above the rain clouds, greeted by a world bathed in serene light, untouched by the relentless rain below. The view is breathtaking, a rare moment of peace amidst the struggle as we stand in a place the rain cannot reach. In the distance, towering structures like the one we've climbed pierce the cloud layer, appearing to be ancient spires or remnants of colossal machinery. Rain World is one of those games that sticks with you long after you finish playing. It's not just the gameplay or the challenge, it's the world itself. You're dropped into something much bigger than yourself. The rain, the creatures, the massive structures, they all combine to create this feeling of being a part of a living, breathing ecosystem, of a world that hasn't been allowed to die. It's haunting and it sticks with you. This game perfectly captures what it means to exist in a dying world. The decaying remains of an ancient civilization are overshadowed by the raw power of nature, reclaiming everything. It's a haunting and beautiful experience filled with moments of quiet reflection and adrenaline-pumping survival. And we're not even scratching the surface of what this game, and especially its expansion, have to offer. So many questions remain unanswered. So many paths remain unexplored. While playing Rain World, the sense of loneliness combined with the wandering of an ancient abandoned world as completely overtaken by nature brought back memories of a game I used to play a long time ago. One of my favorite games as a kid. Shadow of the Colossus is an anomaly. Released in 2005 on the PS2, it follows Wander, a young man who ventures into the Forbidden Lands, a vast, desolate place left abandoned by civilization, sealed off long ago from the rest of the world. These lands hold a power, an ancient presence, an entity capable of bending the natural order. Driven by a desperate need to harness this power, Wander journeys deep into the heart of these mysterious lands, seeking the impossible, the return of a lost life, a young girl named Mano. With only his faithful horse by his side, they venture through vast and varied landscapes, traversing across mist-covered mountains and dense forests, to finally arrive to the giant gates that kept these lands sealed for so long. Beyond them lies a bridge stretching across an endless abyss. At its end stands a shrine, an ancient temple rising like a sentinel in the heart of these lands. Crossing this bridge leads them inside this ancient temple, a temple vast, incredibly ancient, and eerily quiet. Wander lays Mano on an altar. A bright light erupts from above, illuminating the shrine's hollow interior. This is Dorman, the ancient entity bound within these lands. It has been sealed here for a millennia. We are given no clear explanation of what Dorman truly is, how long it has been imprisoned here, or why it was sealed away in the first place. Wander pleads to the entity to revive the young girl. Dorman listens and speaks of a forbidden ritual, a way to bring back the dead, but at a great cost. Wander must find and destroy 16 colossi scattered across the Forbidden Lands, each a towering living fragment of Dorman's own fragmented essence. Wander agrees, and with the deal struck, the shrine falls silent once more, and the vastness of the Forbidden Lands now open before us. Guided only by Dorman's cryptic instructions and the light of Wander's ancient sword, the player must traverse the expansive and desolate world. There are no hordes of enemies, no bustling towns, no NPCs, only the empty, haunting beauty of the Forbidden Lands. This solitude creates an unparalleled sense of scale and isolation as you journey through barren deserts, lush forests, shimmering lakes, and ancient ruins. One of the most remarkable aspects of Shadow of the Colossus is how it utilizes the technical limitations of the PlayStation 2 to its advantage. The low resolution and the short draw distance of the PS2 were ingeniously masked by hazy fog, soft blurs, and a radiant bloom from the sky. This not only conceals hardware constraints, but also crafted a dreamlike atmosphere for the game. The original game's visuals don't feel limited, they feel intentional, contributing to an ethereal and immersive world that felt surreal. Shadow of the Colossus came out 2 decades ago, and for a 20-year-old game, it's truly mind-blowing not just how good this game held up, but also how much this game still feels ahead of its time. From the minimalistic design, the beautiful art direction, and the thought-provoking story, to even down to controlling Wander himself, and how incredibly realistic he feels due to the physics-based movement system the game utilizes. Then there's Aggro, your horse, who isn't merely a vehicle or an extension of Wander. She feels like a living, breathing companion. Her movements are fluid and sometimes unpredictable. Just like a real horse, she reacts to Wander's directions, but also has a mind of her own, enhancing the sense of companionship and realism. The Forbidden Lands themselves are the third protagonist in this, and are a visual masterpiece, characterized by vast open spaces, ancient ruins, and a sense of desolation that permeates every corner. The environment tells a story of a forgotten world, filled with remnants of a civilization long gone. As you traverse the Forbidden Lands, there's no background music to guide or distract you. Instead, the soundscape consists of natural elements, the rustling of wind through the grass, the distant cries of birds, the soft clatter of Aggro's hooves against the stone. The lack of music creates a meditative atmosphere, allowing you to fully immerse yourself in the solitude of this journey. Often while riding Aggro, the camera pulls back, framing the world like a painting or a cinematic shot from a film. These moments are the game's way of telling you to pause and absorb the beauty and melancholy of your surroundings. There's so much here to explore and take in, and the game knows that and trusts in the player's ability to uncover all the little secrets and Easter eggs. And if you do stop for a moment and look around you, you can even spot the small creatures that inhabit these lands. Small pathways and easily missed routes often lead to areas with breathtaking views and hidden paradise pockets in the world, untouched by the decay outside. But of course, Shadow of the Colossus isn't just about the journey through the Forbidden Lands, it's about what awaits you in the vastness of its desolation. The solitude and quiet exploration are merely the prelude to encounters that define the very core of this game. To truly understand this world, we must confront its giants, the Colossi. These towering beings scattered across the land, they are the heart of Shadow of the Colossus. And from the very first encounter with the first Colossi, the game establishes its tone and scale. The creatures tower above you, a hulking blend of stone and organic material, fur draping its weathered body, its massive footsteps shaking the earth beneath you. It feels ancient and serene, like it's always been part of the Forbidden Lands, going about its existence undisturbed until you fire an arrow to gain its attention. The cycle repeats. We explore the Forbidden Lands, guided by the light of Wander's sword, tracking the next Colossus. Our second Colossi is Quadratus. We find him while traveling the coast. A path opens up to a coastal archway. The Colossi emerges from his hibernation. Quadratus feels ancient and grounded, like a creature born of the earth and stone, quietly enduring the passage of time. The journey to Gaius takes you across a narrow pathway that opens up to a shimmering, melancholy lake. You navigate a narrow pathway to a raised plateau. The climb is treacherous. At the top, Gaius wakes up from a deep slumber, the tallest colossi yet. This area is stark and open. With the endless horizon framing the Colossus against the sky, its silence feels oppressive. Gaius feels like a sentinel, bound to its platform, waiting in silence for an inevitable confrontation. Phaedra is found in a sprawling, sunlit field dotted with ancient burial mounds. The journey takes you through dense woodlands and past rolling hills. The tranquility of these lands contrasts with the looming task ahead. Phaedra wakes up from a sleep as it notices you. It seems solemn and loyal, tied to the history of the land, guardian of the remnants of the past. To get to Avion, you traverse a narrow stone walkway and hop into a half-immersed grounds, a misty lake surrounded by crumbling ruins. Perched atop a ruin, Avion just watches you at a distance, curiously, only attacking once provoked. The stillness of the lake and the echo of the water droplets enhance the serene yet haunting atmosphere. Avion exudes a calmness, like a ruler of the sky, content in its solitude. Barba resides in the depth of an underground temple. The journey descends into shadowy corridors and crumbling archways. Barba rises from its resting position, a bearded colossi. Barba feels like a forgotten guardian, bound to its temple, a relic left to gather dust in the dark. Hydrus is hidden beneath the surface of a deep lake, surrounded by rocky cliffs and cascading waterfalls. The journey to its lair involves diving into the water. The ripples disturb the serene surface. Beneath the water, Hydrus moves silently, its electric spine cutting through the darkness. Hydrus feels enigmatic and ancient, like a primordial creature that has thrived undisturbed in its aquatic domain. Kuromori is found in a crumbling coliseum, its massive walls overgrown with vines. The journey takes us through overgrown paths that lead to a serene enclosed oasis leading to a dilapidated structure. Kuromori scales the walls with precision, its venomous bursts creating an air of danger. Kuromori feels like a territorial predator, bound to the ruins like a solitary hunter defending its lair. The trek to Besarin takes you through a barren desert, dotted with geysers that erupt with bursts of steam. The land is harsh and lifeless, the silence broken only by the distant rumbles of geothermal activity. Besarin emerges from the heat haze, its massive, turtle-like frame moving slowly across the cracked earth. Besarin feels like an ancient beast of burden, moving at its own pace in an unforgiving environment. Dirge resides in a vast sand-filled cave, hidden deep within the lands. Reaching its lair involves traversing narrow canyons that open into a grand underground chamber, with soft golden sands and jagged rocks, walls illuminated by faint beams of light. The stillness is shattered as the sands stir, and Dirge emerges, its massive serpentine form cutting through the dunes with deadly precision. Dirge feels like a primordial force of nature, perfectly adapted, embodying the predatory stillness of the sands. Celosia is found within a hidden cave at the bottom of a deep pit in the ground, its lair illuminated by the same flames it fears. Celosia is a caged beast, fiercely protecting its domain, its small size deceptive compared to its ferocity. Plagia's domain is a tranquil lake surrounded by towering stone pillars and ancient ruins. The journey involves navigating through pathways and descending into the water. Plagia feels like a temple come to life, a living monument tethered to the waters, guarding its peaceful home. Phalanx glides through the vast deserts of rolling dunes, its massive body cutting through the air with grace. It's by far the biggest in scale. Phalanx feels like a creature of pure freedom, a stark contrast to the desolation of its surroundings. Zenobia inhabits an overgrown ruins of an ancient city, its walls crumbling and overtaken by vegetation. The journey involves climbing through rubble and navigating precarious pathways. Zenobia charges aggressively through the ruins, its movements causing further destruction. Zenobia feels territorial and defensive, a beast clinging to the remains of a forgotten civilization. The city feels like a dying memory, with Zenobia as its last defender. Argus is found in a massive arena. The journey to its lair is long, surrounded by cascading waterfalls. Argus stands tall, a towering warrior that feels like a test of worthiness. Argus feels ceremonial, like a final trial for anyone daring to challenge him. And the last colossi, Malice, resides atop a towering fortress at the far edges of the Forbidden Lands. The journey to reach him is tough, requiring you to cross crumbling bridges, navigate dark tunnels, and climb up dangerous paths. Malice feels like the embodiment of finality. Malice feels like the embodiment of the entire journey you've went through. Its movements slow and deliberate, its gaze unyielding. A monolithic guardian that stands between Wander and the end of his journey. Each battle is unique. Each encounter begins with fear and awe as you face these towering creatures, massive and overwhelming, a blend of stone, fur, and ancient magic. You learn their movements, climb their bodies, expose their vulnerabilities, and ultimately strike them down. But with each victory, a deep sorrow lingers. You can't shake off the feeling like you're in the wrong. The battles, while grand and epic, carry an undertone of sadness that's impossible to ignore. Each encounter begins with fear and awe as you face these towering monsters. But by the time the battle is over, something changes. The terrifying monstrosity you first encountered now lies still, a lifeless body that feels more like a part of the land you've torn apart than an enemy defeated. The Colossi are not the villain in this. They are peaceful, majestic beings existing within their domains as guardians of the land. They are sleeping giants, ancient and serene, seemingly content to live undisturbed, innocent beings caught in a battle they never asked for. And yet, we intrude upon their world, invading their territories with the sole purpose of destroying them. But by the time the battle is over, the illusion fades. The tendrils of darkness erupt from the fallen colossi and pierce Wander. You feel the cost of this cycle. You've slain another beautiful creature. And for what? The game's atmosphere, its music, and its design all work together to reinforce this sense of moral ambiguity, leaving you to wrestle with the choices you've made. In a striking juxtaposition with the darkness that gets released from these creatures after death, with every colossi we slay, a new white dove appears around Mono. Doves are a symbol of purity and innocence. When a colossi falls, its life force is released. The appearance of a new dove might represent the peaceful transition of that spirit, transforming from a massive, formidable colossi to a gentle animal. Shadow of the Colossus, to me, is more than just a game. It's a journey into a mysterious, crumbling world. A world crafted with haunting beauty and filled with unanswered questions. The Forbidden Lands, vast and desolate, are littered with remnants of an ancient civilization long gone. Gigantic ruins, ancient structures, and the decaying artifacts suggest a once thriving culture, now reduced to silence and mystery. Who were these people? Why did they build such monumental structures? And why did they abandon this place, leaving behind the colossi and the strange entity known as Dorman? The game doesn't provide clear answers. It leaves players to piece together fragments of the lore through environmental storytelling. Even now, nearly 2 decades later, the community is still uncovering the secrets of this world. Theories about the civilization that once thrived here, the true name of Dorman, the origins of the Colossi. Questions that continue to fuel discussions and exploration. It's a testament to the depth of this game's design and the richness of its world that still inspires curiosity and debate 20 years on. That Which Gave Chase is an experimental, narrative-driven dog-sledding thriller set in the vast, dead frozen wastes of the Arctic. You play as a dog-sled musher, tasked with bringing a strange scientist back to his previously abandoned expedition. We covered That Which Gave Chase in the last episode of the Dying World series. At first glance, its visuals might not seem to align with the more traditional worlds we've explored, but in every other sense, the game embodies this perfectly. Visually, the game is stark and minimalistic, using the retro PS1 graphical style in a breathtakingly effective way. The endless white of the Arctic landscape stretches in every direction, broken only by jagged outcrops of ice, skeletal trees, and abandoned sheds of unknown origins. The world of the game is stark and unrelenting. The Arctic stretches endlessly. The only sounds are the crunch of snow beneath our sled, the faint panting of our dogs, and the distant clattering of the mysterious deer that call this place home. Its atmosphere captures that profound sense of isolation, of being utterly severed from the rest of the world, with the Arctic wasteland serving not only as a backdrop, but as an effective force working against us. The cold, the endless snow, and the oppressive silence creates a world that feels as though it has already succumbed to death, and you're simply walking through its remains. But what truly sets That Which Gave Chase apart is how it plays with the unknown, the events happening around you, the sense of being pursued by something beyond comprehension, and the creeping realization that you'll never fully grasp the nature of the forces around you. A power that has long controlled the creatures that live here. A power that has driven our companion insane. And eventually, a power that gets to us as well. The game uses the medium of horror not to frighten in the traditional sense, but to evoke a deep, lingering unease, an atmosphere of existential dread, about confronting the realization that some truths are unknowable and some forces unstoppable. Its non-linear approach to storytelling, leaving much unspoken and unexplained, making every moment feel heavier. The fear doesn't come from what you see, but from what you can't, and what you might never understand. It's a perfect example of how eldritch horror can be used to craft a sense of dread that is both cosmic and personal. In Mourning Tide, you play as a lone fisherman venturing out into sea. The journey begins in silence. At first, everything seems ordinary. You cast your line into the waters and wait. For our seasoned fishermen, this must feel routine, almost peaceful. Eventually, something tugs at our line. We finally catch it. We continue doing this a couple more times. The monotony is almost calming. The ocean, vast, gray, and still. Your boat creaks softly, the sounds of waves crashing, and the cold, indifferent winds. It's calmly unsettling. We cast our line one more time, but pulling it out, this one is stranger. Its eyes, they stare back at us. They almost look human. But we cast our line again, telling ourselves it's probably just some strange new species. Until we catch the next one. A stingray, but something is off. Its underside has a face, a human face. The air seems heavier now. The once gray sky begins to shift, tinged with a faint crimson hue that spreads across the horizon. The waves, so calm just a moment ago, start to ripple unnaturally. The silence that once felt routine now feels suffocating. As we keep fishing, our catches grow stranger and more unsettling. A fish with a fully developed human face. A long, red, worm-like creature with a mouth lined with jagged teeth. Each fish you catch, if you could even call them that, feels terribly wrong, like it's being pulled up from somewhere far beyond the depths of the sea. The sky shifts again. The faint crimson deepens into a sickly yellow, casting an unnatural glow over the restless waves. The waters now turn blood red, and rain begins to fall, thick and dark. The storm keeps on raging. You cast again, unable to stop for some reason. And then the final catch. The line pulls. It's heavier than before, resisting as though whatever is waiting for us below doesn't want to surface. You reel it in. Finally, it breaks through. It's a baby, bloodied, screaming. Its cries cut through the roar of the storm. With the baby in our hands, the storm keeps on raging, and the game fades to black. Mourning Tide is a deceptively simple game. It sets you up in the role of a lone fisherman out at sea. At first, everything seems ordinary, even mundane. But then, slowly but surely, things begin to shift. The atmosphere grows heavier, the ocean more alive, and the act of fishing, so routine to start, turns into something far more menacing. We don't really know what the meaning of all this is. Why does the ocean turn red? Why does the storm grow stronger the longer we fish? Why do the catches grow more and more grotesque, leading to the final moment, a bloodied crying infant? Have we just uncovered some ancient, unknowable force of the ocean? Something so immensely powerful, it drove our fishermen insane. Mourning Tide doesn't answer these questions, and that's what makes it so effective. The game thrives on ambiguity, creating an atmosphere of dread through its simplicity, using the vast, grey, unrelenting oceans as its canvas. In The Children of Clay, you play as an archaeologist, tasked with examining an enigmatic artifact uncovered from the Kurgan burial mounds in the Ural Mountains. The artifact is made of clay. Its purpose and origins unknown, but its presence radiates an unsettling air of mystery. By moving and studying the artifact, we can take notes of its features and gain an insight into its purpose and origin. This feature resembles a human face. We also find something embedded in its back. Looks like a metal object embedded in the artifact. It doesn't seem like it is possible to extract. Maybe I can find out what kind of metal it is. The game provides a book that can be referenced to, allowing you to look up terms and piece together the history and significance of the artifact. Searching for metal, we find an entry. The earliest archaeological support of smelting, hot metallurgy, is dated to around 6000 to 5000 BC. The most common metals found on archaeological sites are iron, copper, lead, tin, zinc, and their alloys. Because iron is magnetic, it can be easily distinguished from the rest. Magnetic, huh? We can use our compass to test the magnetism, and what do you know? Searching further in the book under iron, we find another entry. The earliest known ironwork is dated from 3500 BC and made from meteoric iron. There are two main types of ironwork: wrought iron or cold iron and cast iron. Cold iron has a long and varied tradition in the mythological and folklore of the world. Curious, you dig deeper into the significance of cold iron. It reads, cold iron is historically believed to repel, contain, or harm ghosts, fairies, witches, and other malevolent supernatural creatures. This belief continued into later superstitions in a number of forms. Very interesting. Was the iron embedded to repel something, or maybe contain it? The combination of cold iron and the eerie figure suggests a ritualistic purpose. Was it for protection, a trap, or a desperate attempt to ward off something? By turning the artifact to the left, the archaeologist notes a tiny inscription on its surface. This seems to be some sort of runes, but I don't recognize the type. Maybe I can find something in my books. We write the inscription down on paper and look up in our book to see if we can find what language it is. The Old Hungarian script, or Hungarian runes, is an alphabetic writing system used for writing the Hungarian language. Old Hungarian letters were usually written from right to left. Using the provided chart in the book, we match the runes to their correspondent letter. Translating the inscription, it spells Urdung. Looking up Urdung in the book, we uncover its meaning. Urdung is a shape-shifting, demonic creature from Hungarian mythology and early Hungarian paganism who controls the dark and evil forces of the world. After Christianization, it was identified with the devil. One surviving folktale about Urdung involves one of the spawns of Urdung arriving on Earth and the shaman of the village consulting the spirits to learn how to trap the creature. It seems like our fears are true. This artifact is tied to something far older and darker than we imagined. Its purpose isn't clear. Was it a tool for protection or a desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable? Whatever its intent is, there's more to this artifact than first meets the eye. Historically speaking, artifacts like this have been found in plenty in Kurgan burial mounds, which are prevalent across the Eurasian steppe. Specifically, the Ural Mountains are amongst the most ancient landscapes on Earth, holding within their burial mounds secrets that stretch back thousands of years. These mounds are believed to be resting places for ancient nomadic peoples, but their exact purpose remains a mystery. Archaeologists have unearthed many artifacts and stelae that are extremely ancient. Many of them seem to hold religious or symbolic significance. There is much mystery about the true use or meaning of these figures. Once we put down a book, the artifact turns to face us, now a dark and unknown liquid oozing from its crevices. Interesting. Some sort of dark liquid is flowing out of the holes. Looks like the dark liquid loosened the metal object. There's only one thing left to do. We remove the metal plug. Children of Clay is something I would describe as an experience rather than a full game. Being only 10 minutes long, it manages to concentrate a slow, steady sense of dread into a single moment. The slow process of studying each small detail and piecing together the artifact's story feels methodical, almost calming, until the creeping realization of something far darker takes hold. It takes the excitement of unearthing the past and twists it. Maybe not everything from our past can be understood. All three of these games, that which gave chase, the Mourning Tide, and the Children of Clay, share a common thread. They each draw fear through quiet tension and unsettling mystery rather than sudden scares. They place you alone in an unfamiliar environment, surrounded by hints of something vast and unfathomable, and letting you piece everything together. It's this crafted and balanced sense of isolation, of strange forces, and the steady creep of the unknown that makes these games so memorable. But there is a fourth game, a game that I've played recently that has given me the same exact feelings and long-lasting effects as that which gave chase once did. And that game is No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. In No One Lives Under the Lighthouse, we play as a lighthouse keeper. You're told that the previous keeper has gone missing, left his post suddenly, and disappeared without a trace. Now you've been brought in to replace him. The man who drops you off tells you that he'll return in a week and to not lose your mind from the loneliness. You arrive at the dock with nothing but a suitcase in hand. The boat disappears into the horizon, leaving you alone with the sounds of wind and waves. Already, the atmosphere is heavy, quiet, and unwelcoming. The island itself is barren. The lighthouse looms above, an imposing silhouette against the overcast sky. The small house you've been given is weathered and creaking, offering comfort from the harsh environment outside. We are truly alone on this island, but there is no time to dwell on our feelings or to question what happened to the last keeper. There is work to be done. Your role as a lighthouse keeper is straightforward. Maintain the beacon and keep the island in order. You'll start by refitting the sandbags and cranking the mechanisms of the lighthouse every day, which powers the rotation of the light throughout the night. You'll refill the oil from the basement to fuel up the lamp. Beyond tending to the light, there's plenty of maintenance to keep the island running. The windlass rope needs repairing as it frays over time. The roof of the small house you live in needs repair due to unknown reasons. And a strange, dark, oily substance builds up on a lighthouse, which needs scrubbing and cleaning. Day after day, it's just you, the tools, and the endless work. The repetitive nature of it all settles into a rhythm, but it's hard to ignore the creeping sense of isolation that hangs over everything, and the sense that something just off in the distance is watching. The island is bleak, empty, and melancholic. The only sounds you hear at any given moment, the crashing of waves against the rocky shores, the cries of distant seagulls, and the constant whistle of the wind. The weather shifts day to day. Overcast, cloudy skies give out to endless rain, and dense fog that swallows the horizon, making it difficult to make out what is in the distance. The game's visual style also goes a long way to enhance the eerie atmosphere even more. Similar to that which gave Chase, the game utilizes a PS1-inspired visual style, which means low poly models, blurry textures, and an overall pixelated look. This lack of clarity, I think, works well to heighten the tension, letting your imagination fill in the gaps. The ambiguity makes every small detail more unsettling, as you're never entirely sure what you're looking at or what might be lurking just out of sight. It's a perfect match for this game's slow and methodical approach to horror. Although slowly, strange things begin to happen around us. Seeing movements in our peripheral vision, too fast and too obscure to identify. Seeing ghostly figures near the shore, only to lose consciousness when you get too close. The black, inky substance begins appearing inside the lighthouse and in your quarters. Smeared across the floors and walls, it almost appears like tracks, as though something has been wandering through while you sleep. Swarms of moths slam against the lighthouse windows, relentless and overwhelming, as if drawn by something unseen. At night, you hear footsteps above you, slow and heavy, as if something is walking across the roof. We find strange graves dotted around the island. The corpses of dead birds can be found inside, and strange dreams we see at night, which end up being real visions. All of these strange occurrences happen slowly throughout the game, in a way that leaves you questioning what is real and what is a figment of your imagination, warped by the isolation and the oppressive atmosphere of the island. Someone lives under the lighthouse. Fatum Betula is not a game, it's a dream. The game begins and a figure appears, a snake-like being of giant proportion. It explains to us that the world we live in has been stuck in limbo for millennia. Consider this tree and our land to be one and the same, a synecdoche. Both are kept between the living and the dead. We are tasked with exploring the world to find a way to break this curse, to release this world from its immortality. Throughout our journey across Fatum Batula, we explore a multitude of surreal and dreamlike worlds, beautiful and melancholic environments, and meet strange and weird creatures. First, a forest-like hub area, an intersection of all roads we could take. Here we find a cat-headed figure lingering near a pond. From the hub, we can wander to a tranquil lake surrounded by trees. A lone house stands in the middle. Inside the house is a bed that, if we sleep in, transports us to a different place, a different version of the lake, where we meet a strange fisherman. Further on, we find a dense autumn forest. Nearby is a small house. Inside the house's dark basement, a skeleton, seemingly immortal. It speaks of endless suffering. It pleads for release. In the center of this area is a well. Jumping down it, we can find ourselves in a library. A shadowy, wizard-like figure sits in the corner. It's been trapped here, unable to move the wooden door due to an affliction. Beyond the forest lies a strange suburban area. A row of gray houses lines an empty street. Within them lies a secret of our own true reality. You could also find a small, isolated island. Its only features a palm tree, a gazebo, and a dock with a rusted submarine. By the beach, a figure in a diving suit stares silently into the water. Descending in a submarine, you arrive at the ocean floor. It's a barren expanse of sand and ruins. Darkness encapsulates everything. It's almost silent here. Among the scattered coral in a deep ocean flora is a small, dilapidated house. Its presence is haunting, as though it holds a secret you're not meant to see. It feels somewhat familiar, as if you've been here before.
corpse kneels beside a well. Mesmerized by the reflection of its living flesh, it wonders what could have been done and could have been. And for as long as the moon shines, the feeble illusion will prevail. A light sparks in the dark. Which flesh is your flesh?
Vermis is a video game from another world. We begin our journey into Vermis by awakening to find ourselves in a dark crypt. It's cold and damp here, but feels somehow comforting. We make our way out to find that this isolated crypt is in the middle of a graveyard, situated deep within a forest. Next to our crypt, we find an opened coffin. Far from other tombs, inside, an ancient warrior resides, gripping tightly an ancient sword. We've acquired our first weapon. You hear the deafening noise of the cold wind cutting through, but soon you perceive a presence nearby. It's a knight, kneeling down next to a coffin. The game tells us the lonely knight was defeated long ago. His path has been crooked since the day he lost his other half. Despite the imposing appearance, he is totally harmless. He will not defend himself from any attack. You could either ignore him and walk away, try to attack the defenseless knight, or talk to him.
Art thou among the living? If so, this is not a place for thee. Me? I don't think that should concern a stranger in the least. I'm just offering my company to a fellow.
This is the introduction of Vermis, our main character awakening from a deep slumber, emerging into a decaying world, a world that is a shadow of his former self, a shell of his ancient glory. The people of this world are few and far between. Their spirits were crushed long before their bodies succumbed to the decay. They exist as echoes of a forgotten era, lingering in a world that has long moved on without them. I say Vermis is a video game from another world because it literally is. Everything you've seen so far wasn't from a real video game, but a conceptual representation, an illusion that I created. What Vermis actually is a book. More specifically, it is a guidebook, more akin to the video game guides of old, from the golden age of RPG video games from the 80s and 90s. These were manuals that didn't just give tips and information, they were world-building tools. They laid out maps, described every spell, item, weapon, and monster, and even hinted at stories outside what the game could show with their limited graphics. Except Vermis is about a game that doesn't exist. All of this, the entire world of Vermis, is presented in the format of a video game guidebook. But it's not just any guide, it takes the format and pushes it to its absolute limits. Vermis is filled with incredibly detailed descriptions, intricate drawn maps, item descriptions, monster bestiaries, and scattered lore dumps. These elements come together with a layer of ambiguity and cryptic text that invites you to piece the story together yourself. This is how Vermis tells its story and builds its world, not through straightforward exposition, but through subtle hints, fragmented lore, and carefully placed suggestions. Much like the storytelling in Miyazaki's games, something which Vermis very much is inspired by, it relies on item descriptions, cryptic dialogue from NPCs, and the world itself to convey its depth. The story isn't handed to you, it's something you uncover, interpret, and build in your imagination. And all this is brought together by some of the most beautiful, haunting, and thought-provoking art I've seen so far. Vermis is the creation of internet artist and author Plastibu. Plastibu's art is the lifeblood of Vermis, breathing life into a world that feels as haunting as it is beautiful. The visual style captures the essence of a decaying, fractured world. Each piece saturated with eerie details and a dreamlike quality that makes you feel like you're glimpsing a memory of something ancient and forgotten. The muted tones, grotesque yet intricate character designs, and surreal landscapes convey a sense of desolation and mystery that perfectly complements Vermis' cryptic storytelling. You see broken gods looming over ruined landscapes, shadowy figures watching from the edges, and relics that look both sacred and cursed at the same time. Every piece feels like a puzzle, inviting you to linger and imagine a world that birthed these haunting visions. You could genuinely use this guidebook as a blueprint to create your own game. And that's exactly what the fanbase has been trying to do. Inspired by the depth of Vermis' world and the creative possibilities it offers, fans have taken to crafting their own interpretations, whether through games, artworks, and more. Vermis initiates us into its world through the same means many classic RPGs do, a character creator. It begins by asking us which flesh is our flesh, then gives us a choice. The good, described as, a light cannot fade by darkness, it will shine even in the darkest corners of the world. And the evil, darkness is eternal, infinite, unrelenting. No one can escape it. We are born in light, and we rot in the dark. A decision that feels far more nuanced than a simple moral dichotomy. These aren't mere alignments, they are entire ways of being, embodying deeper ideas about life, existence, and the inevitable decay that all flesh faces. Light and dark are interwoven opposites, one defining the other. The book then gives us our character creation screen, and hints us before choosing that our flesh is merely temporary, and that this decision only has the weight we choose to give it. There are 12 different and distinct classes in Vermis, each one vastly dissimilar from the last, and each one with different strengths, weaknesses, stats, ways of life, purpose, gear, and items they possess, and each scales differently on a spectrum of goodness and evil. The world of Vermis has 6 known gods, each master of their own domain. Gaia the Cursed, Dorvis the Truth, Murgo the Relentless, Gurked the Great, Marco the Oracle, and Ketreth the Wrath. The only ones we see in the real world are Marco the Oracle and Gurvak the Great. One is but a severed head, long mummified, and the other a rotting corpse on the side of a mountain. The page reads, also called the Dead Man's Garden, the remains of Gurvak the Great have grown alongside the mountains, and now remain as one of the relics of the old world. It's considered sacred terrain by many. It is said that those who live in Greengrave live longer due to the relic's influence. Already from the character creation screen, the opening shot, and the bits of lore we've gathered within the first few pages, we can already start to understand and conceptualize the world of Vermis. It's one of unrelenting cruelty, of maddening chaos, and one where not even the gods themselves can be safe. After escaping the graveyard, our character finds themselves in the catacombs. The catacombs are not for the weak. They are an underground labyrinth covered in bones and impregnated with the smell of death. Every corner is a threat, and the shadows never felt more alive. Here lies all kinds of different creatures, from skeletal monstrosities to ominous-looking statues that move slowly and silently towards their prey when they're not looking, and lost adventurers who have long succumbed to the madness of this maze. We find the exit that spits us out into a new region, a swamp, covered in cloudy waters and enveloped in a thick veil of mist. Soon, you distinguish a distant figure resting below a tree. We meet a friendly knight who warns us. Once you enter the mist, there is no way out. You will get lost, or worse, you might fall asleep, which means certain death. Witchcraft, I assume. The swamp is a land of illusion and apparitions. The ghosts of the ones who never came back from the mist and are now damned to wander around for eternity. The book then gives us a bestiary of all different kinds of creature and apparitions that call the swamp home. Among them is the man looking back. He's always looking back, even if you try to meet his eyes. The faceless mother, holding a crying newborn with care. The hiding man, who stalks you behind trees, naked and emanating a threatening aura. From the swamp we enter the forest, a dense woodland with giant old trees, called flute woods. Their trunks are full of holes making flute-like sounds when the wind blows through. On windy nights, the whole forest orchestrates a spine-chilling melody so loud it could frighten even the bravest. We get to see some more world-building artifacts, like this Vagrant's Crown, a stone structure that can be found all around the world, used as waymarkers. Those who respect the monument leave a string of their hair or stripes of their cloth, so those who come after can tell how many had ventured into the lands they're about to meet. We also see some religious artifacts and devotees belonging to the god Murgo the Relentless. Murgo's devotees are described as protectors of holy terrain. They live for Murgo's grace and often engage in lethal self-mutilation just to witness the miracle, which is their life will continue as long as they're faithful to their god. Murgo's shrines are scattered around the woods. It is known that every spark of non-human life has grown from one of Murgo's severed limbs. The trees always grow taller around the shrines. After days of wandering through the dense, shadowy forest, we finally stumble upon a clearing. You hear a distant grunting among the ruins. If you decide to check it out, you will find a knight laying below a tree, holding his hand to his stomach while his blood is pouring out. I guess I'm not going to die alone. Well, that's a relief. It's funny how even a stranger can bring solace when one is consumed by despair. I'm not the first one who won't come back from these woods. Nevertheless, I thought it would be different for me. I have sinned of impertinence. Would you do a favor to a dead man? Bring me the box. He points to a small entrance on the side of the building. Deciding to help the dying stranger, we enter the ruins. The room is dark, but a small ivory chest can be seen all the way in the back. Stepping up to it, a trapdoor opens underneath us, and we fall into the void. Landing on a bed of slimy bones, the stench of death clouds our senses, and a pair of yellow glowing eyes stare at us from the shadows. The man-eating beast presents a unique challenge. If we manage to make it out the pit, we find ourselves in a dark room with a beam of light coming from the trapdoor on the ceiling. We hear noises and murmurs coming from the shadows. Small creatures watch us from the dark. They are goblins, shocked to see someone survive the pit. They are paralyzed with fear. At the end of the room, we find a hallway leading to another. A threatening presence awaits for us there. The Goblin Knight. Clad in green goblin-themed armor and carrying a pair of war axes, the Goblin Knight stands between us and the final room in the dungeon. While he is a fierce opponent, his movements are slow, giving him a glaring weakness we can exploit. Once we hurt him enough, the knight falls to his knees. Exhausted, the goblin knight turns his head, staring into a dark hallway at the bottom of the room. He contemplates it for a few seconds, then screams at the top of his lungs and rises once again. The blood pours from his wounds like a fountain due to the pressure. He's going berserk. The knight won't last long, but he will battle fiercely until the very end. After defeating the goblin knight, we make our way into the dark hallway. The last room awaits you. You stare into the darkness. You can feel the tension in the air as you walk through the hallway. It feels somehow wrong, but also like the right thing to do. You feel a light pressure on your chest, a feeling you cannot fully grasp. Inside that room, we find a casket. It's a princess. Her body long mummified, she wears a crown and holds a small box. We pick up the items and make our way out. Once we exit the chamber, we witness an uncanny scene. A pale woman with a sad expression kneels beside the goblin knight's corpse. Her skin lumpy and full of wounds, and her hair floats as if she were underwater. The vision lasts but a half a second. If we leave the ruins and go back to the tree in the entrance, we find the dying knight. The book gives us a choice here to either keep the box for ourselves or hand it to the stranger. If we keep the box and force it open, we find the box empty. But if we choose to hand it over to the dying stranger, the stranger pulls out a key from his pocket, opens it to find inside a shiny green ring. The knight holds it tight and suddenly bursts into flames. Once extinguished, only ashes remain. Long past the ruins, heading north, you will find the entrance of the forest's highlands. We've reached the end of this journey. An ominous and enormous structure rises at the top of the highest hill, casting a shadow that engulfs the landscape. We make our way to the building as the sun goes down. Once arrived as we approach the main gate, our heart skips a beat. In front of us, a large skeleton standing inside. Completely still and silent, the bones are covered in moss. Its unnerving presence makes the air around us suddenly feel heavy. As we keep our eyes in contact with the skeleton, the bones start to move. The skeleton raises both arms, slowly opening its hands, and reveals a pair of coins, one in each. One is made of silver, and the other made of mud. This is a test. If we fail it and take either one of the coins, the building in front of us disappears in a blink of an eye. If, however, we instead deposit a coin made of silver or mud in the correspondent hand based on our will level, the giant allows us to pass. Inside is the Shade Sanctum, a long corridor with 1,000 eyes greet us inside. We take a few minutes for our eyes to adjust to the darkness. The Shade Sanctum is said to be a merciless labyrinth full of monstrosities and deadly traps. Only the creatures of the darkness and the insane have wandered around its nightmarish hallways. The entrance is full of statues with deep hollow eyes and open wounds. Every statue is different, but the features remain the same. Being surrounded in the dark by these ghoulish figures sends chills down our spine. We are given a map of this labyrinth and told that the Shade Sanctum is separated in several layers, each reaching deeper underground, and with each, the darkness becomes more and more dense, to the point where not even flames can pierce through the shadows. No one has found the bottom of the labyrinth yet. It may not exist at all. We come to face many of the labyrinth's monsters and anomalies. We fight undead sorcerers, cursed warriors, and uncanny creations from the unknown. We come across rooms with strange visages on their walls, rooms which are perfectly mirrored, and whom within we come face to face with our own shadow. Lengthy hallways and corners filled with the sounds of a friendly voice echoing within its walls. A friendly character comes out to play, a man-shaped figure dancing and jiggling in the dark. Its feet do not touch the ground. When light is shed over it, the creature quickly pulls away to the next corner by some kind of limb on its back, puppeted by an unknown and unseen horror. and ghoulish figures point their bony fingers to ghosts of people you thought you could never see again. Surely a mirage created to trick you once more. We go even deeper, entering into the lengthy hallways that seem to stretch forever. The wind starts to blow more violently, and our torch flickers. We gradually start hearing steps behind us. It seems to stop the moment we stop moving. Shedding light over where the steps came from, we see glimpses of shadows quickly retreating into the dark. If you follow it, it eventually faces you. A monstrous face looming in the shadows. So grotesque and threatening, it makes you want to pull away your torch just to keep the horrific image out of sight. The figure speaks. It offers you a choice, a temptation to surrender to the darkness.
Have you considered joining the Shadow? A warm and comfortable lodging, no matter what it might seem. You are welcome here, lost traveler. Extinguish your fire and join our home.
If we accept this offer, we join the darkness in eternity, never to be alone again, and we leave our mortal body behind. If we refuse, the creature will go away without saying a thing, and we are left to face whatever awaits in front. We see a gate at the very end of the dark hallway. The labyrinth is treacherous and illusory. It plays on the mind and the body, and makes you face your deepest and worst parts of yourself. The gate takes us to an even deeper level. This one is dominated with water. It is flooded, hindering our movements. Down the hall we find a room with a well. Once inside, we contemplate the space, the rippling reflection of our torch on the water, and the glistening of the moist stone walls. We have an unusual feeling about this room, different from the others. As we approach the well in the middle, a pressure in our chest starts pounding. We feel uncomfortable, but can't point out why. We hesitate for a moment. This well seems oddly familiar somehow, but eventually, the urge for knowledge makes us step forward and look into the reflection. It stares back at us, deep hollow eyes we can't recognize. The body of a stranger made of old bones and paper-thin skin. The image in the well fills us with dread. A feeble illusion shatters in silence. The void swaddles you gently, welcoming you back. A life has been lived, and the dream is no longer. The old bones now slumber, waiting for the moon to shine once again. Vermis is a world that resists simple interpretation. It's not merely a dark fantasy backdrop for the main character to play hero in. Rather, it shows you a world that thrives on contrast, life and death, good and evil, devotion and madness. The story of Vermis is not one of heroism or triumph. It is a tale of endurance and acceptance of fate. Even from the character creator's screen, we are indirectly introduced to the kind of world Vermis is through the many classes and characters we get to choose from, the different kinds of flesh we could embrace. Some characters are defined by obsession, bound to cursed relics that whisper promises of unattainable redemption. Some are laid by rejection, embodying the flaws of humanity in a figure cursed and despised by all. Others endure unrelenting torment for the sake of enlightenment. Their knowledge is as much of a curse as it is a gift. And those who cling to hope against all odds, driven by love and loss in a hopeless world. All these characters are deeply flawed. They are all deeply disturbed, mentally and some even physically, and each one following their own reason of being, separate from some higher ideal. The decision between good and evil posed at the character creator's screen encapsulates this philosophy. It's not a simple moral dichotomy, but a choice between ways of living, to shine against the odds or to embrace the inevitable. Both are valid, both are flawed, and both come with their own sets of consequences. By presenting itself as a guidebook to a video game, Vermis transcends the boundaries of conventional storytelling and becomes a tool for imagination. The incompleteness of the lore and the lack of a comprehensive story invites the reader to inhabit the gaps, to wonder about the world's hidden depths and unresolved mysteries. And there's plenty to wonder about. Like, what happened to the 6 gods to leave them in such ruin? What many of the visions, apparitions, and strange creatures we come across are? And what happens to us at the very end, by the well? Most of these questions are left unanswered, and that's the point. I say most because, surprisingly, this isn't the end. Vermis has a sequel. It's called Vermis, Mist and Mirrors. And unlike the first, this one seeks to expand our understanding of the world of Vermis by being far more direct with exposition and lore, offering a wealth of knowledge and deeper insights into the mysteries and history of the world. It begins in the scorched dunes of Old Agaroth. This vast desert, once the beating heart of the old world, now lies as a desolate reminder of a bygone era, its sands whispering of a forgotten glory and untold secrets. Unlike the rest of the world, though, which rots in silence due to deep, incurable wounds, Agaroth is still very much alive, full of the sounds of humanity and the clinking of coins, rare sounds to stumble across outside of here. Vermis 2 also follows a main character. Here he has a name, the Wayfarer, a stranger, a tomb robber, and a traveler that's always on the move. He visits many places throughout his journey: the Solar Crypt, the Sanctuary of Silence, the Dead Sun's Shrine, the Plague House, the Tower of Decay, the Maze of Ashes, and the Hidden Temple. We learn more about the old gods, their old myths and legends, about the way of life of the people who inhabit this place, their beliefs, and even what they wear to stay cool in the scorching sun. We also learn that our protagonist is cursed. He's being pursued by unseen shadows that haunt his existence. Alone, the Wayfarer rests next to a campfire, the faint warmth of the embers soothing his restless bones. He tries to close his eyes, but his tormented mind does not allow him to. So long has he been wandering the sands that he remembers not his past life. He meanders from place to place, plundering tombs and snatching the life out of those who dare to importunate him, offering them to his insatiable god. He cannot recall when it all started, at what moment the hunter became the huntee. Just for brief moments does his burden lighten, times in which he forgets about the shadows. He never stops for too long, afraid of them catching up to him. He sleeps for short periods and walks all day. His faith in Gaia allows him to face his enemies without fear. However, he cannot help but shiver whenever he thinks of what stalks him from behind. They plague his nightmares, allowing him to catch brief glimpses of their faces. Sometimes they just look eerily familiar, other times downright monstrous. Those unsettling and twisted visages hidden in the shadows terrorize him, yet he has no memory of seeing any of them outside of his dreams. His imagination molds those abominations at his whim, turning what he already fears the most into something impossible to confront. The story of Vermis 2 continues far beyond what we've touched upon, taking the character on a journey through both the outer world and the inner one. Throughout this journey, we learn not only more about him, but also about the enigmatic world of Vermis, its gods, its myths, its forgotten kingdoms, and how these revelations recontextualize the cryptic fragments of the original book. What seemed like isolated moments in Vermis 1 now take on greater meaning. Vermis 2 is a much larger book than the first, not just in size, but in depth, detail, and exposition. But I'll leave the rest of Vermis for you to uncover on your own. The question remains though, which flesh is your flesh? We've explored crumbling megastructures reclaimed by nature and unrelenting rain. Traveled across vast silent landscapes, still echoing the sounds of ancient civilizations. uncovered cryptic lore and history of fantastical worlds, dived headfirst into the unknown, and lost our sanity on lonely, isolated shores. If you would like to explore more worlds like this together, let me know in the comments what you would like to see next. Until then, take care, and I'll see you again soon.